Hello there, I'm Dark Shades, broadcasting out of the UK. Welcome to my channel. First time you're passing through, thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you don't, subscribe if you want to know more about what I'm doing, and you can comment if you want to interact with other subscribers. And sometimes I do respond to comments. But basically, I wanted to talk about how do you forgive after fidelity? Not even how do you forgive. Is there a way that you can heal after infidelity? Can things ever work to get again? Can things get back to where they were? Now, I would say about myself that I'm the worst person to talk about this subject, but that is because infidelity took place a long, long time ago, and I had no tolerance at all. Funnily enough, when I was young, like say during the 60s and 70s, it was almost normal for your partner in the little clique we were in to be unfaithful. So when I was married, my partner was having it off with goodness knows who. And one of the women even came to the house and broadcasted that she was pregnant for my husband. And I didn't leave him because he was unfaithful. I left him because he was abusive, emotionally abusive, overly possessive. And so I'm not quite sure what happened with that relationship, because after that relationship, I never tolerated infidelity again. It was one of those things that I said, from someone's unfaithful, I don't want to have anything to do with them. So subsequent relationships, I did not tolerate. Once I found out that the person was unfaithful, that was it. It was over. As years have gone by, I still don't like it, but I think what would happen now if I discovered that my partner was unfaithful, I think I would have to discuss it as opposed to ending it without no discussion, because that's what happened in the past. I ended it with no discussion. Didn't want to know why, wherefore. That was it. It was over. So, what does it mean? What does infidelity mean? Well, if I'm thinking about what it means to us as a form of the act, it's about being unfaithful. It's broken trust. Unfaithful brings anger. Broken trust brings pain. It's betrayal, which brings humiliation with it. And there's usually some underlying issues why the individual has been unfaithful. And it also means that there's been some kind of disconnect in the relationship. So why are people unfaithful? There's a variety of reasons why people are unfaithful. It doesn't necessarily have to be because you haven't been a good spouse. A person might just be greedy. A person might just want to have their cake and lie in it. A person might just be promiscuous. Some of them, they're just having fun. Just innocent, like what they call innocent flirtations. It doesn't mean anything. As Eddie Murphy says, I F them, but I make love to you, as though you're supposed to be privileged because, you know, he's having sex with somebody differently than the way he has sex with you. Put it that way. Some people, they're unfaithful because they're bored. Been with the same person year upon year upon year. They're just bored. And they want to do something. They just want a change. Some people are unfaithful because they want validation. You know, you've been in a relationship, people take each other for granted. You don't know if you're still attractive. You don't know if anybody would want you. So you go out there and test the waters. Go out there to see if anybody would fancy you or if you can still pull. Basically, that's why some people are unfaithful, because they're seeking validation. Sometimes it's just immaturity. It's this game playing, and oh, just because I can, with no kind of foresight about the implications of what they're doing and the effect the behavior might have on the spouse. Sometimes it's warning of a larger problem. Like I said, all those other things. I mean, what is going on? Why somebody is unfaithful? Sometimes it's about lack of communication. They've done one thing wrong, and then it spirals out of control, and then it's compounded by other things they do wrong. Then you don't have the tolerance to deal with it, and then you don't feel like forgiving them for dealing it, and then you become resentful, and then it just builds and it builds, and then you withdraw, and like I said, you disconnect, and then you pull away sexually, you pull away emotionally, and then there's this recurrent conflict, and the two of you just think, I need something different. There has to be something better than this. And that's how infidelity sometimes occurs, or why it occurs. An accumulation of circumstances. How do you fix it? Well, the first thing you've got to do is find out what the reason was. Why was that person unfaithful? It might be something simple. It might be because you've been ignoring them. It might be because you haven't been paying them attention. And you could say, well, you're not a bloody kid. Do you mean to say every time I don't pay attention, you're going to go off and screw someone else? Is that what you're telling me? It's a difficult conversation to have. Trying to understand why someone's been unfaithful. Knowing the person that you love, the person you've given yourself to, has been giving themselves to someone else. Very difficult conversation. Can it be honest? It would need to be honest. The man would need to be able to say, look, I'm fed up of getting into bed and you're turning your back on me. I'm fed up of the arguments. I don't feel loved anymore. I don't feel reassured. The woman could say the same thing. I'm fed up of having to do the washing up. I'm fed up of having to do the cleaning. I'm fed up of having to pick up after you. It's turned me off. I'm fed up that you don't dress as nice as you used to. And he can say, well, the fact since you put on weight, I don't find you so attractive anymore. I don't find you sexually desirable. That hurts. But it could trigger somebody to take more interest in themselves. Likewise, if the woman is telling him, look, when you come in, and you don't have a shower and you try to kiss me, it makes me feel uncomfortable. I just don't fancy it. You just turn me off. I need for you to smell fresh. It could be something as simple as that. But what happens is if you don't talk about it and you don't resolve it, it gets worse and worse and worse. And you become more and more distant. And you end up not talking to each other over something that's relatively simple. Yes, being unfaithful is a big deal, but it doesn't have to be the end of the world. It doesn't have to be the end of your world. It doesn't have to be the end of a relationship or the end of a marriage. As two mature adults, you should be able to communicate and find out what went wrong, and if the two of you still care about each other enough to work on it, to bring it back to where it was. It doesn't have to end. You don't have to keep that image in your head of your partner being with someone else. You need to get rid of that and get to the core of the reason why they left and were unfaithful in the first place. So sometimes being unfaithful is a cry for help. And that is what I'm saying. You need to be willing to put in the legwork. It's not, and it can't be one person. Two of you need to be able to put in the legwork. The problem with someone being unfaithful, the tiny problem is that if the wife or the husband wasn't a good choice in the first place, and if the love is dying, and if there has been a lot of conflict, and if the two of you are separated, and if the two of you have let yourself go and become complacent, having an affair with someone else who makes you feel good could kind of highlight the fact that the relationship or the marriage you're in isn't compatible. Because now the individual has something to compare it to. And and the thing is, affairs, well, maybe you don't know affairs, but affairs are normally quite exciting. You see them on TV, not I've had one, but they're normally quite exciting. And, people treat each other better in an affair than as they would as a married couple, because that's why you find some women, they love married men. They don't want a man for their own because they're going to have to kind of look after him, do the cooking and the cleaning and the ironing, they say. So if they take somebody else's man, the wife does the cooking and the cleaning and the ironing, and they get the best bit of him. They get the part where he's loving and he's having sex with them and making love to them and all sorts. And the wife gets the raw deal. So it is kind of a tricky situation to be in. You have to just hope that the spouse loves you enough and that the fling he had doesn't take away his love from you. In fact, you want it that it helps him to appreciate you more and wants to work at getting things back the way they were. Because a lot of times these flings, they're temporary. The women only want them because they're not available. They don't really want them. And the same with the men. The men want the women because they're not available. But once they become available and once they become normal and it becomes like a normal relationship, they want to skip. And it's just like, oh, this is the same as like what it's like. I might as well be with my wife. If this is what I've got to put up with. And the same with the woman. It's got a bit mundane now. I might as well be with my husband. So how did the cracks appear? And do you glue it or do you cement it? If you glue it, you can only glue it if, like I said, it's a temporary. No, if you glue it, it just means it's a temporary fix, and there's going to be it's going to fracture easily. Those are the ones where you think you want the person back, and you say you're going to try, but in your heart, you're too hurt, you can't forgive them, and you really don't think you can. And so every little thing that they do, you're picking on them. Every time they go out the door, you're checking on them. You're asking questions, you're being defensive, you're being angry, you're being short-tempered. Those kind of things are going to see the relationship last maybe a little bit, but it's not going to go the course. Now, if you cement the cracks, then it means it's going to be more permanent. This is where it's a more sturdy foundation. This is where conversation is thoughtful and caring. It's the kind of conversations that diffuse conflict as opposed to the other one where it's kind of stuck with glue. It's very fragile. There's a lot of hostility, a lot of criticism, a lot of defensiveness, a lot of contempt, stonewalling, silent treatment and resentment, and that escalates the conflict. Those are the kind of relationships that will not stand the course, the course. The ones that I've said, but thoughtful conversations with your spouse. Yes, I know I was unfaithful. This is why it happened, and I'm really sorry. And the wife saying, I'm sorry too. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to forgive you. I'm going to try and forgive you. I'm going to work at trying to forgive you. But it's going to take some time, and you're going to have to be patient with me. And him saying, yes, I'll never do it again. I will be patient with you. I want our marriage to last. I want our marriage to work. And it's the conversations are nurturing, reassuring. And if possible, you introduce a little humour and playfulness in the discussions. Might be difficult because the topic is very sensitive. But you might even say, so what's she like then? Is she big and fat and ugly? And he might say, yeah, she wore this big old tartan dress when I saw her. She looked bloody awful. I don't even know why I went there. There might be something, even though it's a very delicate subject, you might be able to make light of it. But just be able to respect each other's differences and respect the way each other communicates, and don't try not to take things too personally. So, what are the four horsemen? The four horsemen, these are the things that will let you down, is criticism as opposed to being accepting, defensiveness as opposed to taking responsibility for your role in the situation, contemptuousness instead of appreciating the person for how they have been in the past before this incident happened, stonewalling as opposed to soothing conversations. So communication is important. It's instrumental in forgiveness and healing, and it all depends on how much you both want it to work. It can work, but you both have to want it, and you both have to be mature enough to have those difficult conversations in a calm and sensitive manner. And that's all for now. I hope you found it useful. Bye bye.